Racing isn't simply about competition, it's about experimentation. At the start of each season, every team up and down pit road has pieced together their crew as carefully as their car. Each hopes they have the right setup, the right strategy to get the best possible finish their resources can afford. Of course, no team knows how good their car will run until the driver takes the wheel. Only then, at high speed and in heavy traffic, does the experiment give way to chaos. From that point forward, the team can only help so much. It's up to the driver to navigate every obstacle to the best of their ability, all while pushing their car to the absolute limit. And the cast of characters is always changing. With only a finite number of teams competing for even fewer available starting spots, veteran drivers must fight as hard to remain in their cars as rookies fight to take their place. Careers are always in the process of beginning and ending. Those who succeed fall into legend, the rest into obscurity. Going into the 1999 NASCAR Winston Cup season, it was anyone's guess which direction Kenny Irwin Jr.'s career would go. The rookie had struggled, but so had his team. The 28 crew endured a series of mechanical failures and, most troublingly, blown Robert Yates engines. But still, Irwin faced even more scrutiny. Was he a victim of chaos, or an experiment that didn't work out? The following offseason marked a significant change for Robert Yates Racing. Yates decided to move Irwin's team out of their 70,000 square foot shop in Charlotte to a second shop in Harrisburg. The reason given was there simply wasn't enough space in the Charlotte building, and the crews for both cars kept bumping into each other. We had 50 guys in one building, and if one car is wrecked, everybody jumped on it, said Irwin. If the 28 car was wrecked, crew chief Todd Parrott looked at the 88 car and it wasn't wrecked, and he really wanted to cut the fenders off. He hated to pull the guys off the other car to do that. Still, as other teams simply expanded their shops or merged with other teams with larger buildings, many felt the move confirmed that Jarrett's number 88 had become the flagship team at Yates, relegating the number 28 to its own distant island. But Jarrett insisted the decision wasn't personal. I'm sure there are some who have said the 88 is the flagship team, and maybe there's some merit for that, he said. But you've got a team that for the last 3 years has finished in the top 3 in points, and you've got Kenny getting the experience. He's going to be very, very good. He just hasn't had time. He continued, no matter what goes on Sunday, even if we run 1 and 2, one team is a little higher than the other. And if it's 5th and 20th, somebody is always a little bit down. It's hard to have those guys side by side on Monday morning because the guys who did well can't enjoy it because they're conscious of what the other guys went through. It just makes it real difficult. Jarrett's actions matched his words. He arranged to get Irwin more track time by bringing him aboard his Busch Series team, which at the time was co-owned by Green Bay Packers quarterback Brett Favre. Jarrett scaled back his schedule from 12 races in 1998 to just 3 in 99, giving Irwin the remaining 10 of the team's planned 13 starts. For these races, Irwin would be paired with Wes Ward, who had already been instrumental to Jeff Green's Busch Series success at Diamond Ridge Motorsports. Obviously, there were a lot of choices out there to get somebody to drive the car, said Jarrett. There was never any doubt in my mind who I wanted in it. After failing to qualify for all 5 of his previous Busch Series attempts, Irwin qualified for 5 of his 10 attempts in the number 11 Rayovac Ford. This started with a 5th-place finish in Texas and ended with another 5th-place run at Dover that September. That month also marked Irwin's first start in NASCAR's Southwest Tour in 3 years, where he competed in a 1.1-mile street course through Los Angeles. Irwin started 22nd in a field of 36 and climbed to 10th by the finish, the last car on the lead lap. But of course, the focus was on Winston Cup, and if Irwin could improve upon a wildly inconsistent rookie campaign. The team changed the paint scheme on the number 28, replacing the yellow stripe along its base with a red and white stripe, and removing the Haviland text from the hood. Among the personnel changes at the Harrisburg shop was a new crew chief. Coming over from LJ Racing was Doug Richert, the same man who led the Osterlund team to their first Winston Cup championship with Dale Earnhardt in 1980. Richert and Irwin had previously worked together at Liberty Racing in the Truck Series, back when Richert served as consultant. Their first race together in Cup was the Bud Shootout, for which Irwin qualified the previous November. Irwin drew the outside pole, his Taurus alongside the Thunderbird that Cale Yarborough's team fielded for Rick Mast.
And that car that just took the lead, the 28 of Kenny Irwin, has some of the horsepower. Robert Yates engines among the best.
Yeah, they are. And I hear the big numbers in those engines to be as restricted as they are.
Irwin led the first lap of the season, but didn't lead another, and dropped to 10th in the field of 15. Now, as Irwin prepared for his second Daytona 500, he was met by a familiar face.
That yellow stripe on his back bumper says he's never tried before to run the Daytona 500. What do you got to do? What's your job here today?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is just make sure I keep this Home Depot Pontiac straight.
In the short time since the two raced each other for championships in USAC, Tony Stewart had become a champion in the Indy Racing League, raced in 3 Indy 500s, ranked 6th in his first season of IROC, and scored 6 top 5 finishes in his first 36 starts in the NASCAR Busch Series. Now, here he was, in a brand new second team for Joe Gibbs Racing, alongside Bobby Labonte, ready to compete for Rookie of the Year. In his first ever attempt at making a Winston Cup race, it didn't take long for Stewart to make a statement.
Talk about a surprise. But Tony Stewart has only 2 speeds. Wide open, half turned over. Here he comes.
He's 0.2 of a second faster going into turn 3 than the other faster cars were.
193.3. He dips a little below Skinner's speed in the backstretch where Skinner was fastest. Picks it back up in turns 3 and 4. Checkered flag for the rookie.
It's very close. Very.
It is Tony Stewart. 194.599 miles per hour. Oh boy.
Who would have thought it?
A rookie on top of that.
I mean, I want to cry right now. It's unbelievable. I mean, everybody on this Home Depot team and the Pontiac and everyone at Joe Gibbs Racing, these guys have done an excellent job this weekend. You know, we kind of struggled in the tests here, and we weren't very happy when we went back home, and you know, everybody worked really hard, and it's just it's all fell into place for us. I mean, this is just an unbelievable weekend so far.
Stewart qualified outside pole alongside Jeff Gordon, leading to a flurry of interviews. Back on pit road, Irwin was last in line to qualify. His lap wasn't even shown, as it was preempted by coverage of a golf tournament. On Thursday, Irwin started 16th in the second Twin 125, where he battles Stewart in a Cup car for the first time.
His year of rookie hazing is over, and I think he's become pretty... Oh, boy.
Boy, just about lost control of that car there.
And
Stewart led 7 laps and finished 6th, while Irwin remained in 16th. This placed the Texaco car 41st on the grid for the Daytona 500, an even worse starting spot than in his rookie year. But he didn't stay there for long.
Riding with Kenny Irwin. What a climb he's had. Last year's Rookie of the Year started 41st, and Irwin is up to 11th place.
Kenny Irwin has sliced through the field from 41st up to 10th. I just spoke to his crew chief, Doug Richert, and I said, "What's Kenny saying to you?" He says, "He's not saying much. When you're doing that well, you don't say anything."
As Stewart faltered with engine issues, leaving him 28th, Irwin was still in the top 10 on lap 135 when he closed in on teammate Dale Jarrett.
Well, there's Dale Jarrett right there as they head off in the corner. He goes down on the flat part of the racetrack.
he might have had a little bit of a bump from the 28 car, his teammate, as they went in there.
At 190 miles an hour, it's almost impossible for the brakes to slow the car to miss the incident. You steer for the hole and hope it's still there when you get there.
And Dale Jarrett's car that were involved in that incident, what did it look like to you? You've been watching the replays.
Well, I've seen one replay, and you know, I'll just have to wait and see what really happened. I didn't see it close enough to comment on it.
Whether Jarrett came down or Irwin came up, the result was the same. Undaunted, Irwin continued his push toward the front.
Irvan knows that his car is not quite as quick, and like you get, once you move like that, you have to build momentum back up again, and you see how far back Dale Earnhardt has dropped.
17 times the driver to lead with 10 to go did not win the 500. 4 times that was Dale Earnhardt.
Let me tell you, teammates are out right now. Rusty Waller fighting back on the inside, shows a lot of power right there by himself in the middle of the front line here.
Chevy inside, Ford in the middle, Chevy outside. Little paint traded. Wallace, Skinner, in against Gordon. And look at Earnhardt, the number 3, trying to push Jeff Gordon to the lead.
Earnhardt looked to the inside just for a second there as they head down into turn 1.
And they got Rusty in the middle there, and look at him go backwards. Michael Waltrip here at the start-finish line, and coming with him is Mike Skinner.
Yesterday, old age and treachery, Randy LaJoie overcame youth and enthusiasm. Casey Atwood and Adam Petty. What about today?
That 28 car's got a run coming off of this turn. Is it enough of a run to make a move on Dale Earnhardt?
Gordon's crew chief Ray Evernham watching. Kevin Hamlin, Earnhardt's crew chief. All they can do is watch the monitor and watch their car come by the front stretch. Earnhardt just loosened up Jeff Gordon there.
Yes, he did. He went in there and moved the car around in the slipstream behind him there. You could see Gordon really fighting the car getting down into turn 3. He does not have the muscle at this point.
But he may have some momentum. Here comes Earnhardt. He's all the way to the bottom. Almost in the grass. He slides up the racetrack and Jeff Gordon will win it for the second time.
Wow. What a race.
Irwin finished a career-best 3rd, his first top 5 finish since Atlanta the previous year. But in his post-race interview, he was only asked about his contact with Jarrett.
Career best finish for Kenny Irwin, a 3rd, a tremendous run today, Kenny. But I have to ask you, what took place with you and Dale Jarrett? Was there contact?
You know, I don't think so. He was 3 wide in the center, and getting into 3, I just tried to back off a little, and I don't know if I actually hit him or if the air got off his rear spoiler, but you know, it was a terrible thing that happened. And at the end of the race, you know, we were there, we put ourselves in a position to maybe win the race, and we come up 3rd, which is it's not bad for me.
Was winning Rookie of the Year in Winston Cup as tough as you thought it would be, or tougher?
It's probably tougher. I don't think there's anybody better racing than Winston Cup is right now. So, and the guys this year, they're going to have a tough year for them too. But we've got our second year start out pretty good at Daytona, and hopefully we're going to hopefully Doug Richard can make some more of that magic happen today.
You had a career best run of a 3rd place finish in the Daytona 500. That's no rookie run there. Do you think the rest of the drivers are looking at you as a seasoned veteran now?
I doubt it, but you know, you still got to prove that every week in and week out, and it's kind of like what you've done for me lately, and so we just hopefully go out there and have a good strong run again today.
Unfortunately, Irwin couldn't keep up the momentum from Daytona. He finished 23rd in Rockingham, then turned his attention to Las Vegas, where his Daytona finish made him one of the 5 drivers eligible for the $1 million No Bull 5 bonus. That bid ended while racing Kenny Wallace for the 11th spot.
Continuing to work on the car, but man.
Oh, we've got Irwin, we've got Kenny Wallace and several others involved in the crash. Joe Nemechek in just about the same area of the racetrack as the previous one. Mike Skinner looks like he's involved. No, that's Derek Cope. There's Kenny Irwin. He's out of the car, but the 28 Hamilton Ford is severely damaged.
You know, we got loose on new tires and just got a little loose and evidently bumped Kenny, and just a bad deal because we were running so good and we were going to be good all day. Just terrible for the Texaco guys.
Has to be disheartening for this young man. When he walked up, there were almost tears in his eyes when he walked over and put his arms around his crew chief and said, "I'm sorry."
Following his 41st place finish, Irwin struggled with an ill-handling car at Atlanta that left him 23rd. The race after at Darlington, Irwin was involved in the rain-soaked caution that cut the race short, leaving him with another wrecked race car in 35th. Just 4 races after Daytona, he'd already tumbled down to 26th in points. But then came Texas, site of his 2nd Truck Series win.
Number 28, the Robert Yates car. Remember, Robert Yates has gone with some relative unknowns before. Years ago, he had a guy named Davey Allison. Well, now, it's Kenny Irwin at the controls, and he cracked a lap at 190+ miles an hour for the 1.5 miles to go onto the pole.
Kenny, tell me about the lap here on this newly reconfigured racetrack. How tough is this track going to be today?
Well, I mean, it's fast, don't get me wrong, and it's a lot better than what it was last year. And that's probably the problem, is that the fixes that they did in turn 1 have made it so much faster. And we just, on Friday afternoon, we just cut a really good lap, and it didn't feel real good, but it was good enough to sit on the pole.
You're going to be starting on the inside. Is that going to be a big advantage in the opening laps?
Yeah, I believe that everybody on the inside is going to have some type of an advantage. But hopefully everybody kind of works together and lets everybody get down. And I think by 500 miles on this racetrack and wearing a second groove in, it's going to make for some racing on the outside, but I don't think you're going to see it all day long.
Irwin credited his second career pole to the track's latest reconfiguration. The much smoother transitions at turns 1 and 4 allowed him to break the qualifying record by 5 full miles per hour. Before, you would drop off into turn 1 and you felt like the rear tires were coming off the ground, he said. Now you almost kind of drive up into turn 1, and we can carry so much more speed. I'd say everything's better. The whole thing is just racier. It's a lot more driver-friendly. Irwin had been the only driver to break the 190 mile per hour mark, though Jeff Bodine did run faster than that in practice.
Texas Governor George W. Bush on the flag stand waves the green flag. We're racing in Texas. We will be right back to Texas, but now this CBS News special report.
Again, the broadcast of Irwin's run was interrupted, this time by a news report about military action in Kosovo. But when coverage resumed, he was still out front, leading his first 32 laps of the season. He slid to 15th by the checkered flag. At Bristol, driver and team showed their resiliency. On lap 12, Irwin's car erupted in smoke from a fluid leak. After multiple stops for repairs, Irwin lost a lap and spent more than half the distance trying to get it back.
The green comes out. Three to resume our competition. Now Ward Burton only took 2 tires.
A little bump of the leader, but Kenny Irwin and Ward Burton almost lost it up between 1 and 2.
It'll be interesting to see if those 2 tires, if they'll hold him well enough to stay down on the inside and hold off Rusty Wallace and all those others.
Ward Burton was 10th when he went in, took the 2 tires, came out first. Now Jeff Burton, his brother, did the same thing. He only took 2 tires and gained 6 positions.
Now, meanwhile, John Andretti was running 6 before the caution. When he came out, he took 4 tires. He was running it up.
Kenny Irwin is just 1 lap down, running in 14th spot, and is trying desperately to get it back, and it looks like he will.
And here's a battle for the lead as Rusty Wallace pulls alongside Ward Burton and put the Miller Lite Ford Taurus back in the lead.
And Tony Stewart will try to get that inside line and move Ward back to 3rd.
Buckshot Jones hit the wall hard in turn 3.
Another caution flag comes out.
And Kenny Irwin is going to get that lap back.
Yes, he is. Looks like there may be some fluid there in the 3rd and 4th turns, but still, Kenny Irwin gets the lap back, and so now he gets to go around the whole racetrack.
Irwin passed the leader, only to lose the lap again by the time he finished in 11th. Martinsville proved even more physical, as Irwin had to fight his way from 27th on the grid. On lap 267, he was involved in the day's most spectacular accident.
93 miles. Whoa! We have got Bickle in a crash, and Kenny Irwin is up on the backstretch wall. We've got Tony Stewart, Michael Waltrip, Jimmy Spencer, all involved in this incident on the backstretch.
Rich Bickle's involved. You're just talking about how great things were going for him. He might not be hurt too bad. I think he's going to be able to stay in the lead lap, but Kenny Irwin won't be able to.
Workers managed to wrench Irwin's car off the wall, and he finished 10 laps down in 36th. In Talladega, Irwin simply hoped to finish after back-to-back engine failures in '98. He did, but with less of his car than he started.
In the grass, you're going to skim it across in front of all these cars. Yes, there goes some Jeff Gordon in the wall. Chad Little, Rusty Wallace.
Collected in this pileup, triggered by Stewart and Mike Skinner, Irwin finished 35th, 24 laps down. It was his 6th finish outside the top 20 in the last 8 races. After a 13th place finish in California, Irwin looked poised for another strong run at Richmond, where he qualified third. But near the halfway point, he coasted down pit road.
Here is Irwin making his way slowly down pit road. Down toward pit out. Finally arrives, and the Avalon crew are going to raise the hood.
The car got very, very sluggish, almost like it was running out of gas. He came down pit road. They changed the carburetor, had trouble getting the car fired. It finally did fire back up. Doug Yates said, we're not sure if it got trashed or something in the carburetor, but it wasn't getting fuel. Now, they have changed the carburetor. Now, Kenny says the car is running well, but this guy's teammate is on the move, Dale Jarrett.
The carburetor switch didn't work. On lap 209, the engine let go, leaving him in 40th.
Get in his oil and spin if he isn't careful.
Nice save, huh?
Nice save.
He finds pit road, and he has had just one miserable night after running second for the first few laps.
Yeah, we're done. We had a little problem with the motor there, but man, I tell you, we had a really good car tonight, and Kenny was doing a good job. But you know, my hat's off on all the guys. It's a brand new race car we brought here, qualified third. You know, he's running in the top 10 there until we ran over a tire on pit road, and that set us back a little bit. But you know, the bright side is was running good, and I'm happy. You know, we look forward to the next race at Charlotte.
Taking the win that night was Dale Jarrett, his teammate, who took the point lead from Jeff Burton. It had taken 10 races for Jarrett to make up the ground he lost after his tangle with Irwin in Daytona, which left him 36th in points. After the engine issues in Richmond, Irwin remained a distant 25th. Next came the Winston at Charlotte, where this time Irwin had to qualify for the main event through both a 25-lap heat race and the Winston Open.
Well, I think we only got 3 cars to pass, so right there's a better than some of the guys back there. You know, hopefully it's just a good test for tomorrow, and which gets us into the Winston, but we feel like we got a pretty good car right now.
Irwin took third in the qualifier, placing him 6th in the Open, but he only finished 7th, out of a spot in the main event.
2 career poles this guy's got. One in Texas this year, 98. He won a pole in Atlanta, 29 years old.
Absolutely fearless behind the wheel.
Oh, I'll tell you, he's another one of these kids that's come out of the sprint car and midget rakes, and they just don't know what it's like to be afraid at a racing car.
The sparks you could see out of the middle part of that car as he went down into turn 1. As it gets darker, you'll notice the car is kicking up sparks as they go in the corner with a fuel load like you have right now. As it gets darker, you'll notice the sparks fly.
Sterling Marlin is on the bubble.
Importantly, last year, Irwin failed to qualify for this race, just didn't make it. It was a disaster both for him personally and for the Yates team as well. You know he is totally focused on this run tonight.
27th car to run against the clock, waiting for the time for Indianapolis, Indiana's Kenny Irwin Jr. And the time for number 28, prepared by Robert Yates Racing.
182.285. Whoa.
At the Coca-Cola 600, Irwin struggled for speed again, but this time made the show, though in a distant 36th. And as Stewart arrived on Sunday to complete his first attempt at the double, Irwin made his rival work for it.
Couldn't make the pass on the bottom. He's going to try the outside. You'll watch Irwin. He'll try to block him off as he come off the corner. Almost made contact.
Good block. Comes down a little, and it's wide open for Stewart to try Irwin on the outside, going into 1. This is lap 19.
He'll drive away because the 28 car right now is way, way loose as he goes through the corner.
But once again, Irwin started to improve during the summer. He finished 15th in the 600, then 10th in Dover, and 11th in the caution-free race at Michigan.
Well, that 28 is lacking for no horsepower. He's got as good a motor as Bobby Labonte has for sure. Even though Robert Yates has changed the engine combination a little bit on the 2888, changed it for a little bit more reliability. Cost him a little horsepower, but they're looking at the big picture.
At Pocono, he spun through the tunnel turn grass on lap 129, but still recovered to finish on the lead lap in 18th. He then turned all the laps at Sears Point, even though he finished just 22nd, and despite not bringing in his third-place car from the Daytona 500, still came home 14th in the Pepsi 400. After finishing outside the top 20 in 6 of the first 9 races, Irwin had now finished inside the top 20 in 6 of the last 8, lifting him to 18th in the point standings. The streak ended when the series rolled into Loudon, where Irwin was involved in multiple incidents and finished 26th, 2 laps down. 2 weeks later, when the series returned to Pocono, Irwin made it just 14 laps before contact from Jimmy Spencer.
23, Jimmy Spencer on the inside of Kenny Irwin. They make contact right there. Kenny Irwin hard in to the wall there on the driver's side. You never want to see that happen. And as he gets stopped, fire erupts under the left front corner.
Moments later, here he is clambering out of car number 28. Looks like he may have hurt his left foot. But he didn't want to be held. He wanted to go and point to someone specifically, and that someone, Jimmy Spencer.
Irwin walked away with his 3rd career last-place finish, his first of 1999. For Irwin's 2nd Brickyard 400, the team made wholesale changes after he qualified just 15th. "We changed our whole car this morning," said Irwin, "and I was very concerned that we hadn't practiced this. We didn't test it. This was the only time the setup was on the car. I was upset to say the least, but crew chief Doug Richard made a good call." In the race, Irwin battled his way into the top 10, fighting his loose race car alongside both Burton brothers.
See Kenny Irwin dive down on the inside of Burton, and he now retakes that spot. But Ward Burton has a good run through the short chute. Let's see what he does as they come off corner number 2 and go down the backstretch. He's going to go to the inside and try to take it back. Ward Burton has told us last night on the show, we almost made some contact on the show last night, that he has re-signed a 3-year contract with Bill Davis, and they signed with Caterpillar, the sponsor, so they expect to be around for a long time, and still trying to take over that spot from Irwin. He finally gets by him.
Irwin came home 13th for his best run in a month, but the story was once again teammate Dale Jarrett, who padded his point lead with a 4th win on the season. Jarrett's success only magnified Irwin's struggles. Of what was to blame for his inconsistency, Irwin said, quote, "A lot of stuff. The driver. I don't think it's just one deal that misses it. Like everybody says, it's a team sport. Everybody's got to be working together." In the days following the Brickyard, other team owners started calling Irwin, and the driver asked Robert Yates if he knew something he didn't. Yates was blunt. He wouldn't renew Irwin for the 3rd year of his contract in the year 2000. The news of Irwin's release became official on August 11th. But unlike with Ernie Irvan, the separation wasn't nearly as contentious. "I want to emphasize that this change is being made in the interest of all concerned," said Yates. "Kenny is a talented driver, and all of us wish him the best in his future endeavors." After the announcement, 14 races remained in the 1999 season, beginning with Watkins Glen. There, a practice crash in Turn 5 began another difficult weekend. The crew made repairs in times for qualifying, and Irwin qualified the car 29th on the grid. On Sunday, he again found trouble in Turn 10 and finished in 26th. The next week, with 5 laps to go at Michigan, Irwin was running 13th when the engine let go, leaving him 34th. At Bristol, he bounced off the wall and fought handling issues before he spun in heavy traffic, putting him 24th. Next came the 50th annual Southern 500, site of his qualifying crash the previous year. This time, the car stuck in turns 3 and 4, and Irwin took the pole, the 3rd of his career. In doing so, he joined Ricky Rudd and Rusty Wallace as the only Ford drivers to earn poles up to that point in the season. Even point leader Dale Jarrett was still seeking his first. It's definitely more of a driver's racetrack, and it comes into play more on Sunday than in qualifying because the tires are good in qualifying, said Irwin. That's why there's more of an appreciation for winning the pole here than, say, Atlanta and Texas. But unlike his previous 2 poles, Irwin never led a lap, then bounced off the Turn 4 wall. Again, the crew needed to reset the tow, dropping him to 31st at the finish, 12 laps down. On September 11th, after 4 straight finishes of 24th or worse, Irwin arrived at Richmond and finally had a good weekend at arguably his best track. He qualified 9th and finished 5th, his first top 5 finish since the Daytona 500 nearly 7 months earlier. But just like the spring race at the track, his run was completely overshadowed by who won the race.
And Tony Stewart gets the white flag. 1 more lap to go. Stewart has a lot of traffic ahead of him, but I don't think it's going to be a factor in the race. They come down the backstretch. Bobby Labonte is still about 5 or 6 car lengths behind him. Here comes Tony Stewart off the corner. And in his 25th NASCAR Winston Cup race, Tony Stewart wins at Richmond International Raceway.
Since starting outside pole in Daytona, Tony Stewart instantly became a contender nearly every week of the '99 season. In just his 5th start at Darlington, he earned his first of 14 top 10 finishes through 24 races when he came home in 6th. 3 rounds later in Martinsville came his first of 2 poles. 1 week later at Talladega, in only his 9th career start, Stewart earned his first of 7 top 5 finishes, taking 5th. Now, in just his 25th start, Stewart had his first Winston Cup victory. The record books would forever declare that Stewart, not Ernie Irvan, not Jeff Gordon, and not Kenny Irwin, had broken through as the first rookie to win a Cup race since Davey Allison in 1987. And Stewart still had 9 more races to tie or even best Allison's win total that season. Publicly, Irwin never showed frustration, and even on his most difficult days was always available for an interview. But it must have been difficult for him to finish a lame duck season for Robert Yates in 1999, while Stewart, his rival from USAC, enjoyed just the kind of rookie season that many had expected of Irwin the previous year. Indeed, in the next 2 races after Stewart's win, Irwin willed himself to back-to-back 10th place finishes at New Hampshire and Dover. The Dover race also saw him lead his first lap since his pole at Texas. But next came Martinsville, one of Irwin's worst tracks, where their long-standing rivalry was laid bare.
Kenny Irwin has spun down in turn number 4, necessitating our first yellow flag of the afternoon. It comes out on lap number 30. Irwin trying to get the car off the curb and point it in the right direction, and other cars having to move high on the racetrack to avoid hitting him. He was right behind Kenny.
This is the Home Depot onboard camera. Tony goes down in the corner. And right there, a little bump from Tony Stewart. Ooh, wow, almost in contact with Jimmy Spencer. And we'll see what. And listen to Kenny Irwin.
Doesn't take much.
Just as Kenny Irwin spins down in turn 4. No caution yet.
Yes, sir. Yes, there is caution. Boy, what a huge break for a lot of drivers who had not pitted, and a bad break for those who had.
Finally, Kenny Irwin gets the car righted. The Texaco Howland car off and running.
Remember, our first caution was brought out by a bump between these 2, and the second one is going to be for the same reason.
As we'll watch it again. There the 28 car slides out in front of the 20 car, and he just gives him a little bit of a tap, and around he goes.
And we have another spin.
And we're probably going to have a caution flag, and that's going to let a bunch of cars get a lap back. Can Jeff Burton beat him back? Yes, he did by just about a yard. Oh, and Tony Stewart's going to coast right back in front of the guys.
Stewart's car is pretty tore up there on the left rear. He and Brett Bodine ended up against the wall. I think we can probably, if we have replays, show that the 28 car was also involved in this, not surprisingly.
And we see Tony Stewart taking his gloves off, and his helmet's next because the car will not go forward.
Tony is not happy at the moment.
No, he isn't.
Tony climbs out of the car.
Looks like he's waiting for somebody, probably the 28 car.
And there are his frustrations.
Come on, man, keep going.
20 car, Tony Stewart, Kenny Irwin, going down in turn 1.
And contact. Around he goes. Brett Bodine was up on the high side of the racetrack. Doesn't look like Brett hit too hard, so maybe he'll be okay.
The 28 car, Kenny Irwin, is that who got you?
Well, I got into him the first time. The first time was my fault, and it was an accident. I had my spotter go down and tell his spotter that it was an accident. And then he gave me a hard time getting by. The second time we got by him, and he started catching us after that. I mean, after that, we were a little slower than he was, and I moved up to let him around. He hits me off at 2, so I hit him back in 3 and 4 and spun him, so he took me out again.
How bad is your car damaged? Can you get back out?
It's tore all to pieces.
Something broken.
You wonder if it's one of the studs.
Okay, what we're going to do is get it put together, get it behind the wall, and we're going to get a hub on there.
There you see Brett Bodine's car right behind Kenny's. Well, Brett is back there because of the accident that involved Irwin and Stewart. And a few minutes ago, Brett also took out his frustrations on Kenny. It's a typical Martinsville race, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Irwin sits back there waiting to get the hub fixed on his car.
When the dust settled, Irwin finished 39th, 66 laps down, and later did comment on the incident. "I just drove him like he drove me," he said. "I would have given Tony the first one, because, I mean, me and him have raced together for a long time, but I wasn't going to give him 2 of them." This incident also happened to be Eric's favorite memory of Irwin.
Career-wise, I loved it when he took out Tony Stewart.
Ah, that one. Okay.
Because to me, Tony was the one responsible for that whole thing. It's like you spun the guy out, he didn't do nothing, you spun him out again, and so he took you out. What's the big deal, Tony? And he's lucky. I guess he's lucky he didn't get hurt. Tony, he grabbing onto the side of his car and reaching in. I mean, come on, dude.
Over the next 3 races, Irwin improved on tracks where he'd previously struggled. At Charlotte, he climbed from 34th to 20th in the first 54 laps, led 2 laps during green flag stops, and finished in 15th. At Talladega, he finally took the checkered flag in the lead pack, taking home 10th. And at Rockingham, where Raymond Fox took over Doug Richards' role as crew chief, he finished just 1 lap down in 13th. But in the 3 races after, Stewart won 2 more times, both at Phoenix and the inaugural Cup race at Homestead. In so doing, Stewart shattered Davey Allison's record as the first Winston Cup rookie to score 3 wins in their first season, completing a near uncontested battle for Rookie of the Year. Those 3 races, Irwin's last for Robert Yates, weren't nearly as memorable for his fellow Hoosier. At Phoenix, Irwin started a special paint scheme, only to lose 2 laps and finish 21st. At Homestead on lap 59, he spun on pit road, incurring a 2-lap penalty. He'd lose another 3 by the checkered flag, putting him in 33rd. And at Atlanta, Irwin again tangled with John Andretti, this time as the 2 came to pit road. The wreck ended Andretti's race and left Irwin's damaged car 6 laps down in 29th. Adding insult to injury, Stewart's wins coincided with the moment Irwin's teammate Dale Jarrett clinched his first Winston Cup title. After more than a decade of effort, it was number 88, not the 28, that would hand Robert Yates his first championship. Jarrett hadn't lost the point lead since he took it in Richmond, and at Homestead had amassed enough points to hoist the trophy with 1 race still to run. His only DNF from the entire season had been his tangle with Irwin in the Daytona 500. It hardly mattered that Irwin finished the season 19th in points, 9 positions better than in '98. I asked Irwin fan Eric if he ever sensed a change in Irwin's personality during his many struggles at Yates.
Not at all. I mean, every time I met him, he was always cheerful. I never seen him worried or concerned or mad, or blow off a fan and walk by them. And no, he would stop for everybody. I never seen him with a bad attitude ever. Always with a smile on his face. Always had a smile. Yeah, he had to be under a lot of pressure. I mean, Dale Jarrett winning the championship. He's the freaking teammate of the champion, and there had to be a lot of pressure on him. I didn't see it. I was just a fan, but you think, I read later on that he was having problems getting used to the car or something like that they were saying, and I'm all like, what the heck are they talking about? And this article was basically saying that, Kenny ain't gonna make it, and he sucks. And I'm all like, what the heck?
That winter, Irwin took some much-needed time off. He could have flown to Vegas, Europe, the Bahamas, or any other exotic location, said close friend Pat DeMarco. Instead, he chose to go to Michigan's Upper Peninsula, ringing in the new year around the campfire in the middle of nowhere. But he was surrounded by his sister, Kelly, and his friends. That's all he wanted. But what he needed was another fresh start. In August 1999, when Robert Yates announced he wouldn't keep Irwin on his team, he hadn't yet picked a new driver for the year 2000. He hadn't even scheduled any interviews. By September, Yates was leaning toward Ricky Rudd, whose team, Rudd Performance Motorsports, was losing Tide as a sponsor to incoming team owner Cal Wells. But when it sounded like Rudd had landed a new sponsor, attention turned to Joe Nemechek, who was in his third year of a 4-year contract driving the number 42 for Team Sabco, a multi-car team owned by Felix Sabates. Like Irwin, Nemechek was struggling. While it was with Sabco that he earned his nickname Front Row Joe for starting on the front row in 5 races in 1997, that same year also saw him fail to qualify for 3 of the first 10 races, including the Daytona 500, where Sabates bought Phil Barkdahl's spot in the race. Nemechek then missed the spring race at Bristol in 98, and while he qualified for every race in the first part of 99, by the 15th round of the year in Pocono, he was languishing a distant 38th in the point standings, with teammate Sterling Marlin in 16th. By then, crew chief Scott Eggleston parted ways with Nemechek to work on Marlin's team, forcing team manager Tony Glover to oversee the number 42. And while Nemechek did win another pole at Daytona in July, the poor finishes continued to mount. On August 20th, as the series headed to Michigan, Sabates confirmed that Nemechek would leave the team at season's end. Then, exactly 30 days later,
Joe Nemechek is a first-time winner in NASCAR Winston Cup racing.
Just 1 week after winning his first Cup race in his 180th start, Nemechek worked out a deal with Andy Petrie Racing to replace Ken Schrader in the number 33 Oakwood Homes Chevrolet for the year 2000. By the week after, the deal was official, and Yates turned his attention back to Ricky Rudd. According to Jayski, Irwin was considered the lead candidate for the Sabco ride as far back as August 22nd, 2 days after the news that Nemechek would leave the team. Within the week, he'd meet with both Sabates and representatives of Bell South at their headquarters in Atlanta. There had been concerns that Nemechek would take the Bell South sponsor with him to continue to back his Busch Series team, but that went away when rival phone company Cellular One picked up the bill. Irwin must have liked what he saw, as by August 27th he was trying to get an early release from his contract with Yates, putting him in the number 42 for the final few races of 99. "I want to be with a team that wants me there," said Irwin. But Sabates didn't want to even announce the deal until the final race of the season in Atlanta, which was again Bell South's home track. And so rumors continued to swirl about what other rides Irwin could take. Travis Carter's number 23, A.J. Foyt's new team, or a second car for Morgan McClure Motorsports. Sabates insisted he didn't want what he called a recycled driver who would run for multiple teams, but names like Todd Bodine still did come up. So did Robbie Gordon, whose brief time driving another car for Sabates in 1997 led to an early divorce. "Everybody changes in life," said Sabates. And when Robbie was here the first time around, he was young and thought he was going to come in here and kick everybody's butt overnight. Said Robbie, a lot of that was blown out of proportion, and Felix and I weren't even that mad at each other by the end of the deal. Besides, Felix is a hard guy to stay mad at, and I think there's been some respect gained on both sides, especially since he sees how I went out and started my own program. Sabates kept Robbie's name in the mix for so long that he even thought about bringing back his part-time third team should Robbie bring a sponsor of his own. But instead, Robbie leased Fords from the Irvan Simo team, and with them cobbled together his own single-car program with help from John Menard and Mike Held. The rumored Todd Bodine then found his way to Joe Falk's team, LJ Racing, and as the other new rides began to fill, Irwin remained the lead candidate. But by early September, Sabates still had no deal with Irwin, and Robert Yates had none with Ricky Rudd. There was now word that Rudd had secured the needed sponsorship to keep his own team in business, with an announcement set for Richmond in September. But that race came and went with no updates, and Rudd was then signed as Irwin's replacement. Dale Jarrett was enthusiastic. "I know when Ricky feels something the car is doing, I can go with that information," he said. Kenny Irwin was a young guy in a difficult position. That same week, on September 7th, Irwin was all but confirmed to drive the Bell South car in the year 2000. "It's really not much of a secret anymore that I'm going to be driving for the Bell South team. The deal will be officially announced at Atlanta." Sure enough, on November 19th, Irwin posed in front of two rainbow-colored Chevrolets in the Atlanta infield. While Marlin's Coors Light paint scheme would remain the same for the year 2000, Irwin's would mark a significant detour in the branding for Bell South. While the previous paint schemes were blue and white, the door numbers staggered on top of rainbow striping, Irwin's door numbers ran straight across a set of rainbow stripes that twisted across the full length of the car. And now that car was mostly neon green, from the doors to the roof to the rear bumper. Irwin's uniform was also predominantly green, though of a darker shade than his car. "This was the opportunity I couldn't pass up," said Irwin, "to represent Bell South, not only on the Winston Cup circuit, but on the Busch side as well, with Bell South Mobility. I've always admired Felix and his racing operation, and to have someone as experienced as Tony Glover for my crew chief will be a great asset." By hiring Ricky Rudd, Robert Yates got the veteran driver he wanted, and by signing with Team Sabco, Kenny Irwin Jr. got the fresh start he needed. The deal had come together over dinner, where perhaps Sabatas saw in Irwin something of the first driver he hired in Kyle Petty, a driver faced with lofty expectations, trying to make a name for himself. Up to this point, Irwin had always put himself in high-pressure situations. Each time, he was compared to other drivers who followed his path to great success. Ford wanted him to be the next Jeff Gordon, Robert Yates wanted him to be the next Davey Allison, and Tony Stewart, his rival in USAC, had put Irwin's own rookie season to shame. But paired with Team Sabco, an organization that was itself struggling, Irwin was under practically no pressure and free to be himself. He could hardly perform worse than the team had in the past.
We're just going to start over and try it again, and I think the results will be different, and hopefully in a lot more positive way.
As indicated in the earlier quote, the 2000 season also marked Sabatas' return to the Busch Series after a 5-year absence. Ambitiously, he'd enter 3 cars, putting fellow new hire Blaze Alexander in the number 81, Dave Steele in the 82, and Irwin in the 42. Irwin's was a part-time entry for 14 of the 32 Busch races in 2000, including 11 of the first 13. Among these was to be the May race in New Hampshire, but for some reason this was removed from the schedule, leaving only the 10 companion events with his corresponding Cup starts. In the Busch Series, Irwin would run an inverted version of his Cup Series paint scheme, blue on top of green. For these races, his number 42 promoted Bell South's cell phone division, Bell South Mobility, in conjunction with phone manufacturer Ericsson. The 2000 NASCAR Winston Cup season began in earnest at Daytona. Irwin's 2 poles from 1999 locked him into his second Budweiser shootout, where he hoped to get the same jump start on the season as he had the year before. He drew 13th in the field of 16, and by lap 9 followed Tony Stewart into the top 10. After pit stops, he linked with his new teammate Sterling Marlin and climbed to second, only to be shaken out by the 2 Robert Yates cars. At the finish, Dale Jarrett won, while Ricky Rudd wrecked out of a battle for third. Irwin finished in 9th. Irwin's former team continued to flaunt its speed in qualifying, where Jarrett and Rudd swept the front row. Irwin settled for 16th, placing him 8th in the field for the second 125-mile qualifier. Again, he showed good pace in the high lane, then fell back with overheating issues. In the closing laps, he worked his way from 11th to 9th, securing 18th on the grid for his third Daytona 500. Saturday marked Irwin's first Busch Series start of the year, where he climbed from 10th to 4th in the first 7 laps. He avoided disaster when Jay Sauter broke loose during a 3-wide battle for position. Irwin wasn't so fortunate on lap 54.
One car spinning across the racetrack to pit road. Here comes another into the grass. Hillen is spinning. Borkowski spinning, and Kenny Irwin drives through the grass to miss them both. Caution is out.
Kenny Irwin has a lot of damage to the front of his car, and you can see a lot of damage there on Borkowski's car.
Boy, a good break for those who were about to pit and had not pitted. Bad break for those who just had pitted a few laps ago.
The crash left Irwin 39th. With the overheating issue addressed on his Cup car, Irwin set upon another of his spirited charges through the field at Daytona, climbing from 18th to 5th in the first 10 laps. With 13 to go, he was still running 10th, then slipped to 14th by the finish. At Rockingham, Irwin lost control on lap 18, trying to avoid a spinning Robbie Gordon. The rest of the field avoided both cars, and Irwin worked his way from 37th after the spin to 28th in the middle stages and 22nd at the finish. Often critical of paint schemes, Buddy Baker also wasn't used to Irwin's Busch Series scheme, which came home in 31st.
That's Kenny Irwin Jr. there in the green nose car. The new paint job for the 42 this year, new driver.
Yeah, it's a distinctive color.
Yeah.
At Las Vegas, Irwin carried associate sponsorship from both Ericsson and Channel Lock. Irwin had failed to qualify for the Busch race along with teammate Dave Steele, so both teams' logos were added to the Cup car. Irwin lost a lap in the middle stages and finished 24th when persistent rain cut the race short. That weekend, Irwin reportedly reconciled with Tony Stewart after their altercation at Martinsville, as the two went gambling on the strip. "Kenny was good to everyone," said Stewart. "He was always dressed right, spoke well, and was the most dedicated race car driver I ever met." Atlanta saw Irwin climb as high as 5th in the Busch race before he settled back to a season-best 10th. In the Cup race, he spun with 20 to go after race leader Mike Skinner blew an engine, and he finished 24th, 3 laps down. The next week in the Busch race at Darlington, Irwin appeared to pay back Mike Borkowski for his wreck in Daytona.
Exide. Oh, and we see Borkowski around and bam, slams it inside wall.
Rookie driver Mike Borkowski brings out the first caution flag today here on lap 20 in car number 20. That's on the front straightaway.
Irwin finished 19th, only to have the tables turned on him just 8 laps into Sunday's race.
Oh, we got another crash off the corner there.
Jerry Nadeau, Kenny Irwin, and this is Darlington.
Welcome to Darlington, South Carolina. Another incident here coming just 1 lap of green flag racing.
Everybody coming through 1 and 2, and the 7 car was keeping everybody slow, and the spotter told me that, you know, everybody was slowing down, so we're getting slowed down, and then whoever's running behind me just got in the back of me, and that's what started the whole deal.
Driving a car that had also been repaired earlier in the weekend, Irwin returned to finish 38th, 74 laps down. It was also a long weekend in Bristol. On the Busch side, he qualified a season-best 5th, but lost ground early. He then started to leak fluid, forcing him to make multiple pit stops, and was later black flagged. The issue was repaired just in time for Irwin to be sent spinning into the day's biggest accident. He finished 30th, 37 laps down. On the Cup side, Irwin qualified 39th and was again bumped out of the way by faster traffic.
Here's what you do when you're the leader and there's a slower car ahead. Just a little contact in the back, and poor Kenny Irwin had tried to stay in front. He had stayed in front of Jeff Gordon, what, Ned, 2 or 3 laps?
Yeah, 4 or 5 maybe, and Jeff said, well, it's time to go.
On lap 208, he crashed in turns 3 and 4, then collected race leader Dale Earnhardt, who had taken the top spot just 2 laps earlier. Both returned to the race with Irwin finishing in 40th, 165 laps down. Just 6 races into the season, Irwin had already had 5 straight finishes outside the top 20 and ranked 30th in points. At Texas, where Irwin finished 16th on Saturday, he led his first lap of the Winston Cup season under yellow during pit stops on lap 113. He finished in 17th, his best run since Daytona. Irwin wasn't in the car for the following week's standalone Busch Series race at the Nashville Fairgrounds, a race sponsored by Bell South that featured his car on both the front and back covers of the program. Taking Irwin's place was teammate Sterling Marlin's 19-year-old son Stedman, who, while logging laps in his series debut, found trouble of his own in the closing laps.
2. Chad Chaffin. Here comes Stedman Marlin. And caution is on the speedway for the 11th time at lap 306 of 320.
At Martinsville, Irwin wrecked in practice, and the team had to be excused from their qualifying draw to prepare the backup. He qualified 32nd. In the race, Matt Kenseth's spin off turn 4 caused Irwin to get lost in the smoke. He ran in the back of Gary Bradbury and Larry Hedrick's number 41 car, busting the radiator and sending him behind the wall. For the third time in 4 races, Irwin returned to the track in a battered car. This time he ended the day 37th, 53 laps down. Next came Talladega, where in the Busch race, Irwin made a daring pass entering turn 1.
Watch Kenny Irwin make a move. Whoa, down the bottom of the racetrack, contact between Irwin and Tony Raines as Irwin went down on the flat part of the racetrack.
With 2 to go, he'd worked his way to 9th, but climbed no further, leading a trailing pack of cars across the finish line. On the Cup side, Irwin qualified 12th in partial darkness due to a rain delay. In the race, which featured a more competitive superspeedway package than Daytona, Irwin showed speed even when he ran the middle lane.
Behind them, however, look at this, 3 wide, and the 99 car of Jeff Burton, who started 38th, suddenly is right up there at the front.
Being shown in 13th position the last time by, and 75, Wally Dallenbach, the red cell car, just trying to push the 42 car by, trying to will him by those other 2 cars. Kenny Irwin caught right in the middle. Green and blue, number 42.
In the closing laps, Dale Jarrett was on the tail end of the lead lap, but remained directly in front of the leaders, hoping for a caution. It was behind Jarrett that with 20 to go, Mark Martin took the lead from Jeff Gordon, moving Irwin up to 2nd.
Cup race, and Jeff Gordon no longer has the lead as Mark Martin brings Kenny Irwin and Ward Burton with him. Now Dale Jarrett is the lead car, but he is at the tail end of the lead lap. It's an afternoon of racing here on ABC. At the conclusion of this event, in just about 55 minutes from now, you'll be able to see the IROC race that was held here yesterday at Talladega Superspeedway.
Jarrett didn't get out of the way until 3 to go, when Gordon was back out front and Irwin was 4th.
Let these guys go and figure out who's going to win this thing.
He says, gentlemen, battle it out for yourselves, but we'll leave it all to you. All right, Gordon. Now looking at just 2 laps to go.
Coming to the white flag, Ward Burton tried to make a move on Skinner for 2nd, but Irwin stayed low to take 3rd.
Jeff Gordon completes lap number 187 in the lead. Skinner is 2nd. Kenny Irwin down on the low side in 3rd. Ward Burton up high and losing spots. Can Mike Skinner make a move? And can Kenny Irwin make a move? They're down the backstretch for the final time. Gordon keeps the car low on the racetrack. Nobody makes a move yet. Will anyone make the move before they hit the start-finish line? Now Kenny Irwin looks to the inside of Mike Skinner. Nothing going there. Dale Earnhardt is up on the high side. In the battle for 3rd position. He's got a good run up there.
Remember what Mike Skinner said? He'd wreck his mother to win a race?
Let's see what happens. Gordon has the lead as they come down through the tri-oval. And Jeff Gordon is back. He's going to win the Die-Hard 500.
Earnhardt dropped Irwin to 4th, just 1 spot short of tying his career best run.
Did you let yourself think about the possibility that today could have been your first win? I mean, Gordon had won before, but you and Skinner were looking for that first one. I know you wanted it badly.
Yeah, you know, just I didn't think about it. You're just trying to put yourself in a position the whole time just to inch up there. And a couple times, I think Sterling was leading, and I wanted to run 2nd. And sure enough, I pulled out of line, and nobody went with me. And I think I went back to 25th. It's kind of a cycle all day. You go back, come forward. It's just actually it's a lot of fun. It's pretty intense, but it's a lot of fun.
Congratulations on a great run.
Thank you.
In the Busch Series race at the California Speedway, Irwin again found himself just inches from disaster.
Touch the brake to get the car to turn a little bit. Oh, and is that the 19 with B.J. Jones? Around he goes. He squeezes it down to the line. Oh, just a couple of inches. And Irwin is sideways. Now they're 3 wide. Oh, the 33 goes down and almost runs to the side of Jay Sauter in that 43 car. That's Kevin Grubb behind Sauter. Irwin looking for some empty racetrack. He's in the middle of that 3 wide battle. And I know Lazaro did not want to be 3 wide on the outside going in the corner. Joe Nemechek. I'm Kenny Irwin. And I don't know.
He finished a distant 32nd, 2 laps down. Then in Cup practice, he slipped from the top 5 to 17th on the speed charts, and in qualifying, he got loose in turn 1. On lap 100 of the race, while trailing the field through turns 3 and 4, he backed into the wall and slapped it with the driver's side. Irwin finished in 42nd.
And here's Kenny Irwin, who also began his Winston Cup career here at Richmond in September of '97.
There you see the top 25 qualifiers. Dale Earnhardt on the bubble in 25th. Mike Skinner on the pole currently. And Kenny Irwin goes down to 24th. Bumps Earnhardt. 22.024 that first lap. One more to go.
Terry Labonte now becomes the bubble man. Checkered flag dropped for Kenny Irwin, who started 3rd here a year ago and 9th last September. Second lap for Irwin is up to 20th fastest.
21.986, 122.805 miles per hour.
At Richmond, Irwin took 25th on the starting grid, putting him in the thick of traffic once again. He climbed from 25th to 19th in the first 8 laps, then gained 4 more spots off pit road. On lap 171, Irwin was still in the high lane, running door-to-door with Mike Bliss, when Bliss ran over a piece of brake rotor off the car of Robert Presley, who wrecked in turn 1. Bliss careened into Irwin, taking both out of the race, with Irwin in 42nd for a second straight event. "Something must have broken, or a tire gone flat on that other car, because he hit me so hard," said Irwin. "The Bell South Chevrolet was handling well and was really starting to come to me. I really hate this for the guys because they thrashed all weekend on this car, and Richmond's days are longer than most. But I'm okay, and we'll go from here and try to get them at Charlotte." The team denied a rumor that Irwin was hospitalized for a possible concussion. "I am doing just fine," said Irwin. "I'm just a bit sore from the accident, but nothing more than that. I was very tired during the trip from the racetrack to the airport Saturday night, but I was not taken to the hospital."
Kenny Irwin's open wheel lineage is undeniable as Rookie of the Year for both the Sprint and USAC Silver Crown divisions. He has 2 wins in the Craftsman Truck Series. He was 1998 Rookie of the Year for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Kenny Irwin, the next of those who have qualified for the Winston. Second time he's been in this all-star event, Dick Bergman.
He's a good one. Kenny Irwin really came out of the open wheel ranks, made his name in USAC sprint car and midget racing. Had a tough time here at Winston Cup. He's come close. No wins so far.
Here's the look of the Bell South machine for this weekend. Kenny Irwin, who was also in the Winston back in 1998.
For the second time in 3 years, Irwin qualified for the Winston, as he joined a team that won with another driver the previous year. To celebrate their first start in the All-Star race, sponsor Bell South joined forces with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to promote Project Impact, a disaster preparedness initiative founded in 1997. FEMA picked this race to bring further attention to the upcoming hurricane season, which was set to begin on June 1st. "Prevention is the key to surviving any disaster," said Irwin in a press release. "NASCAR fans are concentrated in a region often hurt by disasters, such as hurricanes and floods. By helping to spread this message of prevention, we can help protect the communities that have made racing the #1 spectator sport in America." In the race, Irwin made an aggressive move to the inside of Darrell Waltrip at turn 3, but made contact and broke loose. This caused a stack-up behind, where rival John Andretti was trapped behind Irwin and a closing Jerry Nadeau. Andretti clobbered the outside wall, taking him out of the race, and leaving him with injuries that led to Kyle Petty standing by the following week. Irwin continued with minor damage to the rear of his car and lost a lap near the end, finishing in 12th. Irwin ran the Project Impact scheme again in the Coca-Cola 600, where his was the last car out in qualifying as Dale Earnhardt Jr. secured his first career pole. Irwin managed just 33rd on his lap and finished in 24th, 3 laps down. That same weekend, Irwin also debuted a new Busch Series scheme for Saturday's race, where he climbed from 12th to 2nd on a lap 8 restart.
Kenny Irwin Jr. got a heck of a start there. You're allowed to pass on the outside.
Riding with Kenny Irwin. He's moved up to 2nd spot. Jeff Burton falling back to 3rd.
It's going to be interesting to see what they call on that, but You're not supposed to pass until you get to the flag.
Well, you know what? He's going to get the black flag for jumping the restart. Kenny Irwin going to be penalized. Watch for the flag here as he comes to the start-finish line. And there it is. Black flag for Irwin. He'll have to come to pit road, stop, and then go back out again. By virtue of communication from his spotter that Irwin has to go for the penalty, Burton goes by into second, and here comes Kenny Irwin down pit road. Can he make this stop and go and not lose a lap, I guess, is the question here.
Despite his stop-and-go penalty, Irwin managed to stay on the lead lap through the next round of pit stops, and he finished in 20th. For at least the next 6 races, Irwin didn't enter any Busch Series races and focused entirely on Winston Cup. At Dover, he qualified 11th, his best starting spot of the young season, and at one point bumped Jimmy Spencer out of the way. But 3 times, Irwin was lapped by Tony Stewart on his way to his first win of the season, leaving Irwin 17th. At Michigan, Irwin leapfrogged from 18th on the grid to 4th for the lap 23 restarts by staying out during the first round of stops. But in 20 laps, he fell out of the top 10, and with the first red flag for rain on lap 151, he'd fallen a lap down in 33rd. Then, on lap 191, Irwin lost the engine and coasted to pit road. Under caution, the rain fell, giving Stewart his second straight win. Irwin was shown 35th, still listed as running at the finish. At Pocono, Irwin qualified 38th, and by lap 6 was racing Elliott Sadler for 30th, but his transmission lost third gear, forcing repairs on lap 23, and on lap 132 he picked up nose damage when Jimmy Spencer spun in front of him. He finished 25th, but this time just 1 lap down. "It's hard to come back here, but we fought a good fight," said Irwin. "The guys really stuck it out, and we made lots of gains." Irwin remained solid at Sears Point the following week, finishing on the lead lap in 23rd despite 2 incidents in turn 11, one after sideswiping Sadler at corner exit, and another after spinning with Steve Park. The following Saturday in Daytona, Park and Irwin started side by side in row 14, where Irwin again made good use of the middle groove.
In the 42, he's looking to the middle part there. Dale Earnhardt just to the left in front, Justin on the right side there, and the John Deere Ford is Chad Little.
There they go, 3 wide. Well, that was a pretty gutsy move by Irwin to move up on that inside, or right in the middle of those cars.
Well, Jeremy Mayfield almost makes contact there.
Gordon is 20th, right in the midst of all that. There he drops to the inside on the left of your screen, number 24.
Boy, and Kenny Irwin Jr. in the 42 just cut him right off, getting in the corner there. And what happened there is he had to roll out the throttle. Now he picks momentum up coming down the straightaway. You see, he has a little bit faster car, but he had to break his momentum just a little bit.
By lap 15, he climbed from 28th to 13th. He also made use of the apron.
They're pinching me every once in a while up here as they go 5 wide, 6 wide down the back straightaway.
That's for about 13th that Jarrett moved into. He was 29th after he had his tire problem, that long pit stop.
Kenny Irwin, that green car, ran the whole back straightaway on the apron to gain position.
How long can they keep it up?
Irwin led only his second lap of the season, again under caution flag pit stops, this time on lap 86. He remained a threat for a top 10 at least for much of the night, holding 12th on lap 114. But a tight condition and high winds moved the nose of his car around, causing him to slip to 22nd in the final laps. He left the race 28th in points, a spot he'd held since Michigan. "Overall, that was a great race for the Bell South Chevrolet team," said Irwin. "The car was strong. I could run with the other guys and maintain my position. You just can't help which train goes quicker in the end. Drafting is what restrictor plate racing is all about, and you never can tell which line is the better. We just ended up in the wrong one and lost a bunch of positions." After a round of wind tunnel testing at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, the Sabatas team loaded up both cars for the trip north to New Hampshire.
Good afternoon from New Hampshire International Speedway. We greet you today with heavy, sorrow-filled hearts because during practice here yesterday, 19-year-old Adam Petty was killed. An accident in turn 3, taking the life of the 4th generation of racing Pettys. Needless to say, we offer our condolences to Kyle Petty, to his wife Patty, to Adam's brother Austin, his sister Montgomery Lee, to Richard and Linda Petty, the entire Petty family. A heartfelt condolence, although I'm afraid that at a time like this, our words just come up way too short of filling the void that certainly they have to be experiencing. Adam Petty, dead at the age of 19.
Bob Baer, owner of the New Hampshire International Speedway, remained in close contact with the Petty family, both before and after Adam Petty's tragic accident during Busch Series practice there on May 12th. On Monday, July 3rd, when Kyle Petty decided not to attend the race, Richard Petty decided to make the trip instead. "Once I come to the track, it will be a lot easier for Kyle to come back," he said. But he also conceded, quote, "It was hard to make the decision to come at all, but the Baer family was so nice, so I said, okay, I'll go on." On the evening of Thursday, July 6th, the King arrived at the track where his grandson died. "I'm not that emotional," he said, "but this is an emotional deal. If I ever get emotional, it's something like this. You just feel open, empty, because of all the circumstances and stuff. He is still there. The spirit is still there." It was also on the 6th that an article about Irwin was posted on NASCAR.com. That summer, a 23-year-old Marty Smith had been riding for the site for just over a year. He was still finding his place in the garage area, where everyone else seemed to know each other. But as with so many others, Smith was struck by how friendly Irwin was, agreeing to an interview by phone. Smith shared with me the reason for the interview.
What inspired me to do the piece was he was one of those racers that came into Cup with astronomical expectation because he was so young, so handsome, had been so successful driving that 98 truck, and then goes to Robert Yates, and it was a little bit disappointing in terms of the success he had in the 28 car. And I always appreciated him as a person. He was such a nice guy. And then I remember back then, man, I was so young and green, I was still nervous to interview people. I hadn't found the self-confidence yet to kind of have command, for lack of a better term, of an interview and ask questions that were open-ended, that let the subject share their truth. And so I remember some nerves in it, and talking to him, and I just always appreciated him, man.
In Smith's article, Irwin assessed the first half of his season. "It hasn't been very good so far," he said. "We've had a few good runs at the super speedways, but as a whole, I don't feel we've been very competitive. I feel like we go to the racetrack each week thinking we're going to be more competitive, but our qualifying hasn't really been that good. But we keep learning stuff on the way we should do things. This new tire has really messed up a lot of people this year, and it's really hurt us in trying to figure out how to make the car handle. I think we keep inching up on it, but we're not making the kind of leaps and bounds we hope to each week." Smith titled his article, "Dial It Up, Irwin a Contender at New Hampshire International Speedway," predicting that Irwin should be in the mix for Sunday's win, just as his predecessor Joe Nemechek had for his own first win the previous September. "I think going back with a winning team gives us a lot of confidence," Irwin said. "I think they have a good idea of what it's going to take to run good there, and I think we'll be able to have some success there this year." That said, Irwin pointed out he wouldn't be driving Nemechek's race-winning car. "It did upset me," he said, "because I had already talked to Felix before they won that race, and I knew I was going to Sabco, so after they won that race, I made the comment, it's going to be nice taking that car back there. But Tony Glover said, well, buddy, Felix gave that car to Joe. I wasn't too happy about that one. I'm a little disappointed that we're not taking that same car, but we're taking a real good car up there, a brand new car, so we should be just fine." There was plenty more to be excited about. That very week, Chip Ganassi had finished purchasing an 80% interest in Team Sapco, a rumor that had persisted since May. The deal had been suggested by Andy Graves, who months earlier left his previous job as Terry Labonte's crew chief to serve as Ganassi's team manager at CART. No sooner had Graves made this career change that Ganassi wanted to break into NASCAR, either by starting his own team or investing in another. Now Graves was the new technical director of Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. Graves predicted it would take 2 years to optimize the team, so Ganassi signed both Irwin and Marlin to 2-year contract extensions. It was even rumored that Target, Ganassi's sponsor in CART, would become Marlin's primary sponsor and Irwin's associate for the second half of the 2000 season. He's buying the majority so he can run this team how he thinks it needs to be run, and it'll be different from what Felix has done, said Irwin. He hasn't sat down with me and said we're going to do this and this, but we have sat down and talked about me driving the car next year, and that's what I'm going to do. What's happening with Ganassi is going to be a real positive thing to the 40 and the 42, so everybody right now is very excited about the future and what he's bringing to the table. I'm sure he uses a philosophy on how to win. I can't wait to start figuring that out because I really need to get back on that track. On Friday, July 7th, Richard Petty held a press conference in Loudon's media center. In it, he made clear he was there to offer support to the Bear family and was not at all interested in assigning blame for Adam's death. You can't blame racing, he said. You can't blame the track. You can't blame the circumstances. It was meant to be, and it happened. Other drivers did express concerns about the track, how slick the surface became in the afternoon compared to the morning, how rubber stuck so firm to patches of sealer that track sweepers couldn't clear it away, and a bump going into turn 3 that upset the balance of their cars if they weren't ready for it. In the garage, Dale Earnhardt Jr., himself a close friend of Adam Petty, was talking about the finish to the previous month's race at Pocono, where Jeremy Mayfield bumped Jr.'s father out of the way to win. Jr. was asked if he would have done the same thing. It depends on who you're racing, he said. If I was racing Mark Martin, I wouldn't move him out of the way. He wouldn't do it to you. I wouldn't move Jeff Green in a Busch race. He's had the opportunity to do that to me. Also in the garage was writer Brandan Murphy for the Journal and Courier, who was preparing to write a feature for the upcoming Brickyard 400. He met with Irwin, who immediately noticed Murphy's slight accent. The two talked for about 10 minutes about their native Indiana, Irwin himself a fan of the Pacers. Murphy then gave Irwin his business card as the crew pushed his car onto the grid for opening practice. They'd speak again soon, as Irwin would be testing at Indianapolis the following Wednesday. The race would be held on August 5th, Irwin's 31st birthday, followed by the wedding of his youngest sister Corey on Sunday at the Abundant Life Church. Murphy returned to the media center during Richard Petty's press conference, which ended just before opening practice. As engines fired and cars rolled onto the track, Murphy watched the monitors to follow the action. Just a few minutes later, at 11:23 a.m., he heard a crash, saw a green car upside down. It was Irwin. The monitor showed his car stopped on its roof between turns 3 and 4, with massive damage around the right front wheel. As emergency crews reached the scene, the monitors were shut off. Writers and photographers headed into the garage, where some crew members left their cars to see what was happening. They joined the lines of fans who stood along the chain-link fence, watching as rescue crews took the jaws of life to Irwin's upturned car. They extricated him in 5 minutes, and the ambulance pulled up to the infield care center. Out rolled a gurney as rescue crews brought a motionless Irwin into the building, moments before another ambulance pulled up to block the entrance. Ward Burton had been in the infield care center and now walked out, saying nothing. Irwin's team only knew their driver was unconscious, but began to dread the worst. As rumors swirled as to Irwin's condition, Scott Pruitt, driver of the number 32 Tide Ford, recalled what he saw on track. "I know he went to turn in, and all of a sudden went straight," he said. "He took a big lick straight on into the wall. It looked like he just started to turn, and he had the whole thing locked up. He hit the wall pretty hard, not at a straight 90-degree angle, but off a 45-degree angle. He took a pretty good shot. The car climbed the wall and came down on its side, and then slid all the way around. He slid all the way around on the driver's side, and once it stopped, it rolled onto its roof." Then at 1:23 p.m., a white sheet was lifted as Irwin was loaded back onto the ambulance. At 1:27, the ambulance headed to Concord Hospital. And at 2:30 came the official statement.
NASCAR Winston Cup driver Kenny Irwin, 30, passed away today due to multiple injuries sustained in a practice accident at New Hampshire International Speedway.
Sometime later, Irwin fan Eric had just returned from a night out with friends in Santa Barbara. As he got ready for bed, he turned on CNN.
Suddenly, Kenny's picture pops up with the dates, and I'm always like, what? And Kenny Irwin killed in a crash. I was just like, in fact, right now, I'm going flush just thinking about it. I could feel it wasn't cool. And, he was literally just, we're almost the same age. I'm just like 6 months older. And, I was looking at, it's like somebody my age dying, and I was, 31 at the time. So I see his name pop up, and they say that, and I'm just like, and I just started, 3 in the morning. I'm surprised my uncle didn't come out or nothing, but I started screaming.
As with Adam Petty's accident, attention turned toward a possible stuck throttle. Some fans reported the engine was still running wide open after the car stopped. Steve Meal, then the technical director for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, said, quote, "The motor was chugging Irwin's car around the track as it slid on its side." Before releasing Irwin's car back to the team, NASCAR conducted their own investigation and reported no evidence of a stuck throttle. But all this was conjecture, as no police investigation into the crash was completed at the scene. By the time Loudon Police Chief Robert Fisk arrived, the track surface had been cleared and practice was back underway. The walls would be repainted later that night, but Irwin's tire marks, 2 parallel lines aimed at the wall, remained visible. The wreck confused Ricky Rudd. If a death at the track happens in years past, it was somebody who was totally raw and inexperienced, finding their first time around a superspeedway, not experienced guys like Kenny, he said. Also, for as slick and bumpy as the New Hampshire track had been, drivers remarked that conditions for both that practice session and qualifying later in the day were as good as they could have been. This included Rusty Wallace, who said, quote, "The racetrack feels good. It's not slick like it usually is." But as Wallace came to terms with Irwin's death, he was then quoted as saying, "I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing at some greasy-ass racetrack? Now I'm rubbing tire out of my eyeballs, grease out of my fingernails, and my friends are getting killed. These are the days that make you not want to do it, I'll tell you that." In the days ahead, Wallace and ARCA driver Mark Gibson will have tow straps installed on their gas pedals to combat the issue with hung throttles. Late that afternoon, as crew members from Irwin's former team at Robert Yates Racing wandered around the accident scene, fans were finally informed about Irwin's condition. Motor Racing Outreach held a service in Irwin's memory. As this took place, a brief sun shower caused a rainbow to form between turns 2 and 3, not unlike the design element on Irwin's car. Kenny Irwin Jr. knew well the risks of racing. In 1994, he suffered multiple contusions when he crashed in a USAC sprint car race at Winchester, forcing his withdrawal from the main event. In 1996, the same day he won the pole for the USAC midget race at Phoenix, 49-year-old Southwest Tour driver Mike Cook was killed in a crash during qualifying. There was Homestead in 1997, where Irwin's first Truck Series win was marred by the fatal injury suffered in Turn 1 by John Nemechek, then an equally serious crash involving Jay Sauter. And at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, when he was just 12 years old, Irwin witnessed firsthand the gruesome wreck that took the life of Gordon Smiley, a wreck that never left Irwin's memory. Yet Irwin loved to race more than anything, and had even told his parents that if he died doing it, he would die happy. The fact could not be ignored. Irwin struggled through nearly all of his 87 career Cup Series starts. On the surface, it's not hard to understand why. His career had all the hallmarks of yet another driver who jumped to the Cup Series too early, only to discover how much he still had to learn. Many of these drivers are simply forgotten in the ebb and flow of new drivers replacing the old for a finite number of seats. It's rare that a driver who finds himself in this position gets a second chance with a top team, finding the right combination in which to thrive. We've been fortunate to see a couple examples in recent years, with both Joey Logano and A.J. Allmendinger. Robert Yates said, quote, "I really wanted to keep a relationship with Kenny so that I could brag on him one day, that I helped him become a superstar. He showed a lot of talent, a lot of talent. He had it. He just had to get the right equipment at the right time." "He had a lot of bad raps," said Doug Richert. "He did what he darn well pleased. He was one of those you had to slow down a little bit, similar to when Dale Earnhardt first started. Driving wide open in the corners is not necessarily the fast way about it. He always tried hard, always good-natured. He was a young guy in a big pressure cooker." Said Jim Smith, then a Truck Series team owner, quote, Kenny was just kind of a fun-loving young kid. He enjoyed life. Probably not as serious as he needed to be at times, but when you're young like that, he just enjoyed life. He enjoyed having a good time.
I was just talking to Eric Jones about this. Jimmy Johnson and I have a podcast together called Never Settle. And we were just taping it in the garage over here at Sonoma. And we had Eric on. And we were talking about how he too was one of those guys that came in with so much expectation. And he actually said to me, I actually thought when I came to Cup I was going to win a championship as a rookie. I was that confident because I'd won in everything I'd ever been in. Sometimes it takes people time. And I think that Kenny going to Sabco, I think that you could have been in that moment where, okay, I'm going to find me.
It's ironic that before Irwin arrived at New Hampshire that Friday, he may well have been right where he needed to be. Yes, he remained just as inconsistent in his first 17 races with Sabatas as he had in his first 2 seasons with Yates, holding 28th in points, but this was actually an improvement over Joe Nemechek a year before, and teammate Sterling Marlin wasn't doing much better in 15th. Coming into Loudon, both Irwin and Marlin had just one top 5 finish each in the year 2000, and while Nemechek scored his first win the previous fall, Marlin was still winless in his own first 3 seasons with Sabatas. In fact, Marlin's losing streak dated back to his last win for Morgan McClure Motorsports in 1996, which was almost as long as the streak that Nemechek ended for Sabatas, which dated back to 1995. Had he lived, how would Irwin's career have played out? The questions far outnumber the answers. For one, Irwin knew about Chip Ganassi's interest in the team well before his accident, which occurred a month before the deal was even announced. Recall in my series 500 Days the efforts that Ganassi and Tony Glover took to build a stronger team around Sterling Marlin, a decision that in 2001 snapped Marlin's winless streak and transformed him into a championship contender for the next 2 years. What could Irwin have done with the same attention? Surely he could have outperformed fellow USAC graduate Jason Leffler, who didn't land Irwin's former ride until just days before the 2001 season began. Just like Irwin, Leffler jumped to Cup with no Cup experience and just one full season in NASCAR, his in the Busch Series. By the time of his own tragic death in a sprint car race in 2013, Leffler had made even fewer Cup starts than Irwin, with 73. That said, would Irwin's NASCAR career have taken the direction Leffler's did later in his career? When Leffler returned to the Busch Series in 2003, he went on to perform even better than when he'd left, scoring 2 wins and ranking in the top 10 in points his last 5 consecutive full-time seasons. Could Irwin have done the same if he committed more to the Busch Series, or perhaps returned to the Truck Series, where he was already a proven winner? How would he have stacked up against a driver like J.J. Yaley, who, like Stewart, was Triple Crown champion? Like Irwin, Yaley quickly landed a high-power ride in the Cup Series, only to struggle for 2 seasons, his in the Joe Gibbs Racing number 18. But that wasn't the end of Yaley's career either. In fact, it still continues today. Could Irwin have enjoyed such longevity? Then, of course, there's Ganassi's powerhouse open-wheel team, exactly the kind of ride Irwin had tried but failed to secure in 1996. Yes, Ganassi was a kart team at the time, but 2000 was the same year his team came to the IRL and won the Indianapolis 500 in the hands of a dominant Juan Pablo Montoya. Could this have opened the door for Irwin to secure his long-awaited chance to start the greatest spectacle in racing, perhaps even teamed with Tony Stewart in 2001? Would he have made his own bid at the double? Or would he have left NASCAR altogether to run full-time in the IRL? The fact is we don't know, and we never will. And that's the tragedy of Kenny Irwin Jr. It's not simply his death, but that he died right when both he and his team were about to take a huge step forward, and thus neither realized their full potential. Perhaps the highest praise Irwin ever received was from his greatest rival. At the day of the Loudon race, on the morning of July 9th, 2000, Tony Stewart was late to a driver appearance as he was watching the television broadcast honor Irwin's memory. "I didn't want to miss any of the tributes to Kenny because he deserved them," he said. Stewart dominated the race, but only won after a timely rainstorm saved him from pitting out of the lead. "We were teammates, and I knew him and raced with him for the last 9 years," said Stewart. "We weren't always on the best terms with each other, but we always respected each other in a race car and what each other could do in a race car. This isn't the first time I've made this quote, but he is a part of the reason I got to Winston Cup, because he made me become a better race car driver, because I had to beat him every week. He was as tough as anybody around, week in and week out, no matter whether it was in a sprint car, or a Silver Crown car, or a midget. He was the guy that I had to beat every week to win the race. He made me a better race car driver, and probably got me ready to be a Winston Cup driver to a certain degree. So I want to dedicate the win to him.